In the case of the fine for clearing sidewalks, the higher fine that was a good example of us going a little too far with a high rate. And then what ends up happening is we have lots and lots of challenges rather than people just paying the fine. So actually, we do believe that by lowering the rate, we'll have more compliance on the actual payment of fines and hopefully more compliance. On the clearing for snow, we do have the priority sidewalks across the city that the city clears itself. So we do a number of those. For residents that have difficulty clearing their own sidewalk, we do have the programs like Snow Angels, which allows people to be paired up with someone who's willing to shovel the walk with someone who's not able to.
Thanks very much. My last question is about so we're approving in principle a decrease in the discount amount for fines for bylaw offences. I'm pretty concerned about that because I know a lot of people take advantage of the opportunity to pay sooner and pay less, and I'm worried that this is going to affect we're all very concerned about affordability. Can you please explain the reasoning for this?
Yeah, well, again, when we looked at our discount rate for violations of that nature, it was quite substantial in the range of 40%. And we don't see other jurisdictions providing that level of discount. We feel with the reduced discount, we'll still motivate people to pay those fines early, and that is the discount, what the intention of that is. And then the full rate stays the same.
All right, thanks for that explanation.
Great. And so, Councillor Maloney, I just want to make sure I captured what you said. So when it comes to vote, you do want to sever C?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks. I'd also like to sever B. I believe this is the one that Evo and Modo spoke against that will increase basically increase their fees for car share, which is good for the climate and good for people who can't afford cars in the city.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks. Through you to Lon or Colin, the proposed freeze on the fees for patios, how would that be offset in the engineering budget?
So I'll respond to that one. So the estimated amount for that would be around $300,000. At that level, we believe that there is opportunity to manage that within the overall city budget. So we would look across all areas and report back to council should this amendment be approved. And then we would manage it and we'd provide that information to council in a future report back.
Now, if in follow-up and to my earlier questions around the street and traffic bylaw fines, is if I was to add an amendment to J to suggest that those fines, that specific section within Appendix A, be increased to accommodate the estimated cost of this patio permit, would that be in an amendment to J?
I'll just need to confirm.
It's kind of on the fly.
Yeah, just confirm the specific letter.
So I think, yeah, reading through it, J does suggest that's references Appendix A with all the various fines, and I'm really just interested in the one section on street traffic.
We'll just confirm the specific letter, but in principle, yes, council can make amendments to provide direction to staff to increase specific fees. I'll just confirm the letter.
Sorry, just to be clear, so in terms of the J, that is related to the removal of snow or snow clearing, and K is the more generic one that applies to a number of bylaws.
Okay, so the consequential amendments to ticket offense bylaw as set out in Appendix A is just for snow, and it's really just in K.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, there's a whole bunch in A.
That's where I was, which includes the street and traffic stuff. And so I'm just curious if it's in J or in K.
I guess we'd be looking for some specific direction on that if there's an increase that you'd like to see.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to double check if C has been severed.
C has been severed by Councillor Maloney.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no one else in the main queue. I just want to, there is the amendment queue stacking here, so can we clear that? All right. I want to make sure we got everyone here. So, Councillor Fry, you're on the main queue again. Is that intentional? Okay.
No,
Okay,
I'd like to move an amendment.
Okay, I'm going to move you to the amendment queue now. Councillor Kirby-Young, you're in the amendment queue right now. Okay. Awesome. Councillor Fry, please go ahead. And do you have a seconder? Councillor Bly. Councillor Fry, please go ahead.
Yeah, just so I'm further that this is to add to K, further that the street and traffic bylaw fines outlined in Appendix A be offset to accommodate increase or lost revenue from patio fees.
And the clerks don't have it.
That's because I was just writing it as I was
Awesome.
saying it.
There you go.
And I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Fry, it looks pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, and just in terms of a comment, I will note that this is a sort of this bucket covers a number of different components. Unfortunately, the amendment is not specific, but it does include things like street vending bylaws. I think we want to encourage a vibrant city, those types of things. So it doesn't make sense to me to increase the fees. It's distinct from the rationale for the patio fees in my mind. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a point of information through you to staff, to Lon. I just want to make sure I understood, I heard correctly is in answering a question about the street bylaw fees, is that indeed we did increase them? Is that what you reflected, albeit in line with other jurisdictions?
Well, as mentioned, if you look at that Appendix A, there's a lot of different fines for a lot of different purposes. The biggest increase that we adjusted was for safety violations for stopped vehicles. So these are vehicles stopped, blocking a crosswalk or a fire hydrant.
For pedestrian safety?
So that they increased significantly more than we would normally do for an inflationary increase. And that was to create the behavior outcome.
Okay, and that was really, that increase was around addressing, so stop vehicles to address pedestrian safety and to clear path.
Overall
line of
road
sight.
safety, that's right.
Overall safety. Okay, okay, sounds like that's been achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, if I may through you, just to add clarity, my intention was to reference the very specific 3 rows in the table on page 8, which is listed as street and traffic bylaw fines. It's not inclusive of things like special event permits or street and sidewalk usage fees. This is more specific to things like stopping at crosswalks and too far out from the curb kind of stuff. Can I get some clarification that that's how staff interpret the direction in this amendment? Not to go after things like special event fees?
Yes, I see this section you're referring to, and if you want to direct us to adjust within that area, we can make that happen. We can work with finance to look at what an offset would look like in these various fees.
But just to be clear, because I think there was confusion from one of the counselors that this would be for like sidewalk usage and special events. That's a different section than,
Well, unfortunately, all of those different recommendations refer to Appendix A, which is quite long and quite large and includes all of those components. And so, but what I understand from your motion is to really focus in on the street and traffic bylaw fines, which is that box subset within Appendix A.
right. And I think that's clear in the street and traffic bylaw fines outlined. Do I need to be more specific or is
I
that?
think that works. Yeah.
Okay. So to be clear, I'm just going after the street and traffic stuff, not the permits for special events or food trucks or anything like that. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Councillor Dominato.
My last point of information, Marin, is just simply that just looking, I appreciate, thank you for the page reference, Councillor Fry, just to staff again, just what I'm seeing here is that those, all of those areas have been significantly increased according to the table it's provided over last year. Is that correct?
Yes, those are the biggest increases that we've introduced from $100 to $150, from 77 to 90, 70 to 90. Those are the types of changes that are proposed in this budget.
Thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue for Councillor Fry's amendment, we're going to bring Councillor Fry's amendment to report 1E to a vote. Okay, and Councillor Fry's amendment fails with myself, Councillors Kirby Young, Dominato, Montague, Klassen, Meisner, and Joe in opposition. Okay. So back to the main queue, Councillor Kirby Young.
Are we now commenting on the motion before we go to the vote? Is that where we are?
We are on 1E, that's right.
Okay, I will hold. Thanks.
Councillor Orr.
Yeah, I was just wondering, point of information through you to staff, it would be possible to exempt car share companies from the parking permit increases?
Yes, that's entirely possible. In fact, we currently offer a discounted rate at parking meters. So they do pay the time that EVO vehicles or model vehicles are parked in parking meters, but we do it at a discounted rate, recognizing their benefit to
Parking meters, but not the permit.
Yeah, so that's a direction we can take if council's interested in that.
Okay, I'll move that amendment. I'll send it over there.
Sorry about that. So Councillor, are you going to move amendment? Okay, so I'm going to move you to the amendment queue and put yourself on the queue. Great, please go ahead.
Yeah, just further that car share companies be exempt from permit fee increases.
And do you have a seconder? Great, Councillor, I think Fry got there first. Councillor Maloney.
Thanks for moving this amendment. I think it's a really important one because one of the ways that we can give people affordability is by not having to own a car. And I'm aware that owning a car and running it costs an average of about $10,000 a year. So car share schemes are a really good way of us facilitating people getting out of their cars to reduce traffic congestion and increase affordability. So I'm wholeheartedly supportive of this this amendment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby Young.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I think we need to look at having some equity across all of the different ways that we're trying to move people out of cars. We poured millions of dollars into Moby bikes, and yet when I fought to bring forward e-scooters, we held them to a different standard. No public money went into them, and in fact, that is making money. It's a revenue generator for the city of Vancouver. Modo and CarShare do already receive discounted rates, as was already mentioned, with respects to utilization of the valuable public space. And so I think that this would further, this would actually push people into cars versus, say, for example, the scooters, or looking at the bike rentals. And I don't think that that's what we are trying to do. We are trying to get people to move around by active transportation, but I think that we can't hold one active transportation partner to a standard and then continue to give sort of a lot more latitude, to put it that way, to the others. And there are already preferential rates that are afforded to the car share in order to support them. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Maloney.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that I've heard a lot from people who are able to give up a car because of having the occasional use available to them of car share. And I know that that particularly applies to families and children, and people for whom a scooter is not an option to get around town. So we often hear from people that cycling is not an option, scootering is not an option, but transit is often an option, and the occasional use of cars through car share, I think it's a false equivalency to be comparing car share with the scooter scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue, I will be putting the amendment to a vote. If we can please go to the voting panel. Great, and the amendment fails with myself, Councillors Kirby Young, Dominato, Montague, Klassen, Meisner, and Joe in opposition. Back to the main queue, Councillor Orr. Okay, great. Seeing no one else in the queue for 1E, I'm now going to bring 1E to a vote. If you can all go to the voting panel.
Are we severing?
I'm sorry, that's right. So we're going to sever B and C. So Councillor Orr wanted to sever B, and Councillor Maloney wanted to sever C. So clerk.
And did I think we heard G as well. Was G?
Was there a severing of D as well? Did someone?
That was not my severing. I thought
No,
Councillor Orr
I didn't get,
G.
unless I missed it, I didn't have anyone severing D. So let's just clarify, safety check. Did anyone sever D? Perfect. Oh, perfect. Okay. So clerk, what's the best way to do this? Do we vote on B first, then C, and then? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. So just so we're very clear, this is 1E, and we are severing and voting on B. You can please go to the voting panel. Councillor Fry, you're good? Yeah. All right, and that passes with Councillors Bly, Fry, Orr, and Maloney in opposition. All right, now we're going to vote. Once again, we're on 1E, and this is paragraph C that was severed by Councillor Maloney. Councillor Dominato. Great, and that passes with Councillors Bly, Fry, Orr, and Maloney in opposition. Now we're going to vote on the remainder of 1E. And that passes with Councillor Fry abstaining and Councillor Orr in opposition. And that concludes 1E. All right. So now we're going to move along to 1F, the 2026 fee increases for rezoning, development, building, and other related applications and permits. So before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes that they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anybody wish to declare a conflict? Seeing none, would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Council, is there any discussion? Councillor Maloney.
Yeah, point of information to staff through the chair. I'm wondering, the report acknowledges the downturn in development and permit volumes due to economic circumstances, which suggests that the fee burdens are being increased during a weaker market, potentially decreasing affordability and viability for smaller developments. And some of the new fees are very large. Do we have any capacity to temporarily hold off on them until economic conditions change, or is this just one opportunity to make a decision on these?
Yeah, so just to respond to that, I think, again, the prior direction has been around cost recovery, and so the recommended fee increases are to maintain cost recovery. Council could provide direction for a different objective, such as maintaining fees, which would mean that the program wouldn't be cost recovered and would require a funding source from another source, for example, property tax, to maintain whatever the difference is between what's being charged and what it costs. Just to note again that these fees are a small component of the overall development costs, but council has that ability to provide direction on these increases.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the queue, gone. Okay, we are going to put 1F to a vote now. Councillors Blind, Kirby Young. Okay. And 1F passes with Councillors Bly and Orr in opposition. Okay. So now we're on 1G. Proposed 2026 operating and capital budget. Before we begin, does anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none, would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Council, is there any discussion? And Councillor Dominato, you are up.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment to this portion of the budget.
Okay. Can I please move you to amendment queue? And all right, Councillor Blount, I'm just going to, sorry. I'll let the clerk actually do this.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just going to give councilors a moment. I've just circulated an amendment, but I'll start speaking to it.
And before that, can we get a seconder? Great, Councillor Joe, thank you.
Thanks. So in the context of a week and a half ago, there was a number of questions posed to staff about the budget and proposals, and in answer to some of the questions, it was highlighted that staff were planning, not related to the budget, but we're planning to review a number of problematic baby change tables in a number of locations, and that it stemmed from safety concerns, and I think all of council has received, and the public's now received several memos highlighting some of the areas, the locations, but also some of the quite significant vandalism of these baby change tables, and you've seen a number of them lit on fire or hanging loosely and not safe. And so this is actually not a budgetary motion per se in that, but it is to clarify what we, I think, learned now through several memos to council, is that this work was already contemplated at an operational level because of vandalism and safety concerns for children, and it had nothing to do with the budget or cost cutting. And so what I am proposing is that council direct staff to prioritize the prompt replacement of vandalized baby change tables. Happy to hear a baby here in chambers today. In areas where there are high levels of family use and 30 locations experiencing repeated vandalism, and continue to search for more resilient materials and designs that are harder to damage, and maintain alternative installation locations within facilities to reduce exposure to vandalism, and design improvements for future installations such as tamper-resistant fixtures and improved sight lines. And I'll just wrap the amendment on the note. As a mom, I've raising 2 kids in this city, and I've had many occasions of using baby change tables in public spaces. I've changed babies on the ground when there weren't, on the grounds of bathrooms where there weren't baby change tables. I've changed them in parks. I've changed them in malls. I've changed them in vehicles. I've probably changed them on public transit now I think about it. There's just been, as a parent, you just never know. And so this is really about addressing, I think, a misunderstanding when this question was raised, and that this was not related to the budget, but I think this helps clarify our commitment to a family-friendly city, and that is what I'm proposing to council today.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much, and I just want to express support for really restating and clarifying the importance of this particular amenity to parents, to new parents, and just to the overall available sort of infrastructure that's needed in our public spaces and in our city, civic facilities, city-owned buildings, libraries, community centers. I think it goes without saying that this is an absolutely necessary amenities and baby change tables. I just want to highlight, and I really do think that the outcry around this particular aspect is not resolved by just addressing this one particular aspect. I think it needs to be stated that it was indicative of something much bigger in this budget, which was a lack of clarity around how a 0% property tax increase was going to be achieved without taking away the very important amenities that citizens in our city require, depend on, expect, and we have a mandate to deliver. And so this is just one of many of those services and programs. So while I appreciate the very specific yet reactive response to a short-sighted budget, I'll support it. But I think that if this has anybody feel like they've sort of resolved the issue, they've missed the point. Thanks.
Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't disagree more with the comments of my colleague just now. This is about safety for children and for parents. And it is unfortunate that this issue got tied up in the budget conversation, because this is not about the budget. This is about ensuring that we are providing safe places for parents to change their baby's diapers. And we all want that. So I appreciate this amendment. We need to look for more resilient materials, whether that's stainless steel baby change tables in areas where there's been vandalism. I did an interview on this last week. It was pretty shocking to see these baby change tables that parents rely on being vandalized and set on fire. The city has a responsibility to ensure that when we're providing the baby change tables, that they're safe for parents to use. So that's really what this is about. It's about ensuring safety for children. This is not about the budget. And it's unfortunate that it's been spun as being part of the budget for political reasons, because again, it's about safety. So I appreciate Councillor Dominato's amendment, and I'm fully supportive of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just provide a quick comment, and I would concur with Councillor Meisner's kind of characterization of this, that there is nothing more important than public safety, and there's nothing more important than child safety, and there's nothing more important than infant safety. And if a compromised table was there and a baby in their most vulnerable state crashed to the floor, I shudder to think what that would look like. So I think it's really important that we level set on the facts of why this situation was identified, and the fact that our staff are going to look for alternatives to ensure that we continue to provide these. But I do not want to be seeing a news item about a baby hitting the floor or a parent experiencing that type of trauma. And so I appreciate that we're working to try to fill the gap while we identify longer term solutions, but we would be derelict if we did not acknowledge the life safety issue and distinguish that from the broader budget conversation, because you cannot put a price on that. And I think, and I appreciate this amendment from Councillor Dominato, and I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, certainly appreciative of the support for babies. We all love babies. I was really lucky to get to hang out with my new friend Declan and do a little photo downstairs with all the babies, and it was lovely. And I appreciate that this is a very magnanimous gesture in response to some of the negative publicity around the comments that baby change tables would be eliminated as a budget measure. What I am curious, though, is while this is a wonderful and magnanimous gesture, typically these kind of budget amendments would come with a cost consideration, like we're going to pay for this by X, Y, Z, and I don't see that. And I appreciate this budget is very light on details, but I guess I'm curious. Maybe this is a question of staff. How would this be paid for? Where's the money going to come from if we're already cutting everywhere?
Yeah, thanks. Again, just given the amendments that have been proposed are in the relative materiality of very small dollar amounts, that we're comfortable, we can identify the offsetting sources and report back to council with the further information that we'll share after the budget is passed. But they're not largely material items in the overall budget.
And I appreciate that. But just for my clarification, so that I'm not going crazy, we did in the past, we would typically say this will be paid for by taking money from XYZ, and that's our past practice.
Yeah, that is past practice, and I would say again, if there are material amendments that are proposed, that we would need to identify offsetting measures, but for measures that are primarily policy driven, but with immaterial budget considerations.
I mean, I recall that we did, of course, have last year an amendment for street cleaning that took money out of arts and culture and community service budget. That was $1 million, so it wasn't nothing. But of course, I want babies to be safe, and I love babies too, so I will happily support this.
Yeah, and council can provide that, if there are specific areas, council can provide that direction, but we can also, for this level, identify.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Colin, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Yeah, just a point of information to staff through the chair. I understood that these baby change tables were being vandalised frequently in men's bathrooms, and that it wasn't the proposal wasn't to replace them because of the frequency of their destruction and the cost of replacing them. So does this amendment change that, or did I misunderstand that?
So again, in terms of the information, that level of detail had not been worked out at the in relation to the comments. So that would be, if this is passed, we would again, yeah.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate this amendment and the spirit in which it was brought forward. I have, since that information came to light in our council meeting, I've heard a lot of fathers talk about the awful conditions that they change babies in when public washrooms are available at all. But I think the problem is that we were lucky to get this specific information. We got very little specific information about other cuts, and you know, that's great that it's about safety for babies and children. I don't think that a parent's going to try and change a baby on a change table that's been set on fire. I'm really happy if we're going to be getting baby change tables in men's bathrooms replaced. I think that there's a bigger, more disturbing question about why these are being vandalised in men's bathrooms that we as a society need to look pretty hard at. And also I think that the issue is that this budget cuts a lot of areas that affect kids and families and young people, and we're going to have more user fees for parks where and community centres where there are facilities for people to change babies. I would like to see a different direction where we are investing in more and safer washrooms that are fully equipped for parents wherever they go in the city. And that's not what I'm seeing in this budget. So I will be voting in favour of this amendment. I appreciate it being brought forward, but I don't think it's just about the danger of babies falling off change tables. I think the discussion is wider discomfort with the effect of this budget on the lack of information and specificity about what's being cut, and the effect on parents and kids of this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Orr.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the amendment. I have an amendment to the amendment based sort of on the direction of Councillor Maloney in terms of just.
Sorry, Councillor, if I can get you to go to Amendment Q2, please. Great, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sort of based on, I appreciate the very specific direction of the amendment to focus on baby change tables, but I think there's a larger sort of equity issue at stake in terms of families across the city and what this budget means to them. So I've produced an amendment based on that.
Give me for 1 sec. Yeah, that was Councillor Bly seconded it. Okay. Council, is there any discussion? Councillor Dominato.
Mayor, I'm just going to ask for a 2-minute recess. I just would like to pull up my procedure bylaws because I think that there is a portion of the procedure bylaw that just would note that this is not I'm not noting if the issue itself is not consistent with the motion that's been put forward, the amendment that's been put forward.
So we'll 2-minute recess.
So if I could just have a moment to review the procedure bylaw with the clerks, because I just think there's they're different topics entirely. So I'll get some guidance there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just appreciating the spirit with which Councillor Orr is bringing this forward, because I think all of us support accessibility and childcare. But I just want to note that, and I'd look for a ruling on this, is based on our procedure bylaw, section 8.7G, that the motion fails to meet any other characteristics or condition that applies to stating a motion, and further that under Robert's rules, it is not germane to the motion that was tabled. That you rule it out of order at this time. Thank you.
Okay. And okay, well, so I will rule it out of order based on the facts that you provided, Councillor. And so, Clerk. So then the amendment to the amendment gets squashed. It's off the floor, great. And so then we go back to the amendment queue. And Councillor Orr, do you have any other comments?
I contest that that it is germane to the motion.
Okay. Is there any supplementary information that you want to?
No,
I'm
just contesting it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. My ruling does stand. Councillor Dominato?
I'll just wrap up on the resolution. I think that my colleagues all spoke quite clearly to the issue that, again, I think surfaced. And as I understand it, and I certainly I'm happy to have the city manager correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that this review was contemplated for some time of existing sites because of the ongoing vandalism, and staff have the reports in their hands that this vandalism goes back several years. And so just noting that, and that it was not specifically tied to the proposed budget, and in fact has no bearing on achieving the zero property tax increase that's proposed. And I think, again, and as noted, the city has a responsibility to families and parents. There's a liability if someone, there was damage to a table, a child was harmed. And so I think that, again, we just need to go back to the facts. And it's been very unfortunate that this has been kind of wrapped up in this discussion, but that's hence the amendment today was, again, to add that clarity and that commitment to families, to family programming and services, and in this instance, to the baby change tables that came up as discussion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think today in general is a good opportunity after we had the budget introduced and we went through all the speakers, and now council is debating to level set a number of facts as we go through different topics. And just with respects to the proposed amendments brought forth by Councillor Orr, I think there's been misinformation out there conveying that Vancouver is not a family-friendly city. Even, for example, I've heard some of my colleagues suggest that there's a change in daycare fund.
Councillor, I totally apologize for interrupting. Can we slow it down just a little bit for
the interpreter?
sign? Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
That was slower for me, but I'll do it better.
And we're all excited. Sorry about that. I just want to interrupt.
No problem. I will note that some folks have suggested that the city would have a reduction in daycare funding to the tune of approximately $18 million. This was incorrect and erroneous. And the response that was received back from staff in response to questions that councillors posed was this: that childcare operating grant funding is proposed to be maintained at last year's budget levels in alignment with the council direction to maintain community grants in the 2026 budget. And the budget continues also to make new capital investments, I should say, in childcare. So I'm hopeful that as we go through these different points of discussion, we're able to ensure that the public has a clear and accurate understanding of where we are spending funding and where we are maintaining it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, I'm going to bring Councillor, Dominato's amendment to a vote. And that passes unanimously. Right, so I'm going to go back to the main queue. Councillor Dominato.
I have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Also, I'd like to move a amendment, which I just circulated to the all the council members. Can you?
And can I please get you? Yeah, so we're on the main queue. I'm going to now ask Councillor Joe to go to the amendment queue. Great, and I'm going to advance you. And Councillor Joe, can we get a seconder, please? Great, Councillor Meisner seconded. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So I think the province has a same program already in place for the energy retrofits for buildings, and also the heat pump program. Council also passed a motion before to support similar programs. So it's mainly within the provincial jurisdiction, and at the municipal level, our first responsibility is to deliver the core service people rely on every single day. That means fixing the potholes, repairing the sidewalks, repainting the street poles, and also the maintaining the street lighting and keeping our public spaces clean, safe, and accessible. This may seem like very basic tasks, but they are the backbone of a well-run city. When the roads are smooth, sidewalks are safe, public spaces are well maintained, residents feel the difference immediately. Seniors can walk with their confidence, parents can push strollers more easily, cyclists and drivers are safer, and the business benefit from a more inviting public realm. Focusing our resource on this essential ensure that every neighborhood, not just a few, sees visible, tangible improvements. This is the everyday work that keeps our city moving and directly improve the quality of life for everyone who lives, works, and visits here. So with this amendment, I hope that with the additional support, our engineering department can enhance our basic core service for the city.
Thanks very much, Councillor Meisner.
Thanks. I was happy to second this amendment. To Councillor Joe's point, the provincial government, the federal government, they have rebate streams for things like heat pumps for energy retrofits. And I'm fully supportive of those programs and that work. We need to focus on city core services. And when I saw this in the budget as a line item, I did a double take. I thought it said energy retrofits for city buildings, which of course I'm very supportive of. We should absolutely be doing energy retrofits for our own civic buildings, whether that's community centers, libraries, et cetera. This is actually over $8 million of public money for non-city buildings. These are privately owned buildings. So this just doesn't make sense to me. And we already have a huge deficit in terms of sidewalk repair around the city. We can barely keep up with the amount of funding that's required to ensure that we're fixing things like sidewalks and potholes and civic infrastructure. So I think this makes a lot of sense. And I think that $8 million being reallocated into those core services, which is what this budget is really all about, is going to have a noticeable impact and improvement for everyday Vancouverites. And that's what I want to see. I want to see, Vancouverites seeing the results of our investment, not retrofits for buildings that aren't even owned by the city of Vancouver. So that's why I'm supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks. It's a little confusing because I thought the overall budget priorities already aligned with core services such as filling potholes, repairing and replacing sidewalks, and improving LED street lamps and repainting poles and other necessary public realm upgrades. I thought that was kind of the entire scope of the budget already. So this is just an extra amount to support something we were already supporting. Just kind of feels like we're taking away from something that is a good program in the midst of a global climate crisis. Can I, a point of information through you to staff, what percentage of our emissions are from buildings? I think we had it recently. There was a number. It's quite a large amount, if I remember.
Yeah, it is. The majority of our emissions are either from transportation or buildings.
The majority of our emissions are from either transportation or buildings. What would taking away this fund do to that potentially?
So to be clear, the amendment in front is to do with unallocated funds for next year. I will just note that we have some carryover funds. We had 17.4 million remaining in this program. About 9.1 remains through sort of committed contracts for various retrofit programs, things like affordable housing, not nonprofit-owned affordable housing. So this would just reduce our amount going forward.
Okay, thanks. And then for Colin, through you, Chair, what percentage would this $8 million be in terms of a property tax increase? 0.5.
So a 1% increase is just over $12 million. So
Yeah, around something like that. Okay,
0.7%.
thanks. I think I'll come back on. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney.
Thanks. Just point of information, is this for cooling, installing cooling or heat pumps? What's this for?
It can be, yeah. It can be a combination of retrofit for the energy efficiency of buildings or cooling programs, things like heat pumps.
So this funding is likely to go to things that improve the livability of non-profit owned buildings.
That's part of its purpose, yes.
So for people who are not the wealthiest people in the city that need support.
That forms part of the purpose is to target nonprofit housing as part of this program.
But it is to help cool in case of excessive heat, like in the heat dome where 619 residents of BC died from the most vulnerable groups in our community.
Cooling programs are part of what the funding can be used for. It's flexible city funding for the purpose of retrofit, part of which can be for cooling for sort of climate adaptation purposes.
And the other parts would be to decrease energy use, to decrease the amount of money spent on energy so that these non-profit organisations could spend less on power.
Correct.
So they could spend more money on looking after the people that are not wealthy who they help.
That's fair to say, yes.
Right. Well, that's pretty extraordinary and illustrates, thank you very much, why I can't possibly support this. This is another example of how this budget gives a tax break to the people with the most capacity to pay to contribute to city revenue while decreasing clearly the living conditions and decreasing this city's environmental leadership. I'm really quite surprised that this would be so blatantly moved forward. What an extraordinary amendment. I couldn't possibly support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clausen.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Joe for bringing this forward. I'm fairly familiar, having worked in the nonprofit sector previous to joining council, around the kinds of programs that are available. I know that a number of us attended Housing Central last week. Fortis BC was one of their platinum sponsors, and I know that Fortis has been working with organizations like BC Nonprofit Housing Association for funding to bankroll staff for retrofits, building audits and what have you. These are things that really kind of fall outside the purview of the city, and as has been stated by Councillor Meisner, by and large, these are programs that require big dollars and the ability of a provincial or federal government. And we're sort of seeing a number of shifts happening at senior levels of government right now with regards to climate initiatives. But I think this is one that holds fast. It should remain as a part of senior levels of government. And for us to be able to reinvest in those incredibly important things that people see and touch every day, sidewalks, safety on the streets, and all the kind of infrastructure that we do to kind of keep our city going, I think is a much better use of those remaining unallocated dollars. So I'll be happily supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. Just a point of information through you, Chair, to the city staff. Does the province, there's some reference to the provincial government having similar programs, which we know exist for homeowners to retrofit their homes with heat pumps and et cetera. But does the province have programs for larger buildings similar to ones that homeowners can access?
Excuse me, yes, I do believe the province has a number of programs available for retrofits.
For larger buildings?
Yes.
Okay. Would co-ops be, just to give us a bit of a sense of who's accessing these types of programs? I know operating costs are adding extra pressure to co-ops, and they're often looking at retrofits as a way to bring down energy costs, happening in many communities across our country and certainly here. So co-ops, not city-owned, do they access this program?
They can. I'm not aware of any co-ops specifically that have accessed this program so far.
Do we have other options if this was to be passed? We've got this is the top-up amount you were saying for 2026 in terms of the capital investment. So we're not changing the program, we're reducing the funding to this particular program.
So yeah, this program has been in place through the capital budget cycle. It's the final year of the capital budget cycle. The 8.279 million is the remaining unallocated amount of funding. We don't have other program funding for these purposes specifically.
Do you have a sense of how many buildings could access this program and what impact that would have in reducing emissions in the coming years should this program become fully allocated?
Yeah, I mean, every project's very different. They can range from small and
Maybe just an average,
to very,
best guess as to
very hard for me to say, Councillor. I would say in the range of, I'd be guessing on the floor, Councillor, on an exact number, but
I think
yeah,
we all are guessing on the floor with this.
but in the range of a handful of projects in this 1 year cycle. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just leave it there. I'm not going to support this. I mean, I think this is, and I'm very sorry, Josh, to put you on the spot, but I think we've all been put on the spot with this amendment. These are important programs. I appreciate the fact that other levels of government do sort of a variation of similar programs. And this is part of a capital plan that this council has already supported that included this investment in these programs. I feel like this is consistent with taking our city backwards in terms of defunding and deprioritizing this work. And for that reason, I won't be supporting it because I think this is incredibly important work. We are good partners. We have SROs that are not necessarily our financial responsibility, but if we can play a small role in making sure that buildings, low-income, non-market buildings have access where they may not have access to other programs. And again, this is very much on the fly, but I do know that single-room occupancy buildings, because of the nature of the actual building itself as being once upon a time a hotel, they're not actually able to access federal programs, I know for sure. And I'm quite certain have limitations in being able to access provincial programs because, again, they don't fit into the criteria. So before I know answers to any of the questions I've asked so far, which I don't think I'm able to get right now, I can't possibly support this. So I'll be voting against.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, Chair, if I may, through you to Josh, just some further questions on this. So now these are essentially grants and incentives to decarbonize buildings. So it's, yes, heat dome, the 117 people who died in this city as a result of the heat dome, but it's also about meeting our carbon reductions. How do we, are we buying heat pumps for people with this money, or is this about just incentivizing and getting people on the path? And do we means test this? Is this free money for the wealthiest folks, or how's this work?
It's fairly flexible. So we would work with different buildings. Some of those are, as I described, nonprofits that are maybe experiencing heat issues or energy inefficiency, and we have this flexible funding to tailor solutions to those particular buildings. To answer one of the previous questions, depending on the scale of the project, this type of funding would touch in the sort of tens, sort of in the 30 project range. So that gives you an idea of the scale of investment in any given building. But it can be both for the purposes of cooling and or the reduction of energy and emissions within those buildings.
Do we prioritize vulnerable populations with this, like SROs and daycares and that kind of thing? Is that?
Yeah, we have tended towards things like nonprofits, but rental buildings are eligible as well. We have the flexibility to be targeted with the purpose of reducing emissions and mitigating sort of heat effects.
Okay, so and now this was before your time, but we had a rather controversial vote in these chambers about decarbonizing buildings and allowing natural gas into new construction, and that was defeated by a majority of council, not along political lines. Is this sort of an end run around that intention to decarbonize new construction? Will this impact that work?
The way I read this is it's nothing to do with new buildings. It has to do with the retrofit of existing buildings, and specifically non-city buildings that we aid with this program. There's no policy changes with respect to the requirements of new buildings, whether it's energy code or zero carbon step code or natural gas bans.
Okay, thanks, Josh. I won't be, thank you. I won't be supporting this amendment. I think, and I appreciate that this was before many of the councilors here's time, but, as a city, we did experience catastrophic loss during the heat dome. Across the region, over 600 people died. Here in the city of Vancouver, 117 people's lives were lost. And we recognized at that point that there is a role for us to incentivize that kind of resiliency in heating and cooling systems, and where we saw the deaths was really some of the most vulnerable population in these older buildings with cheap rents. Our SROs and the like, and our primary role as councilors is to preserve the health and safety and livability of our residents and fundamentally do no harm. I see cutting this as cutting these energy retrofit grants to support things like, I think Councillor Joe very, very succinctly identified it as cutting things like residential cooling grants. I think that's a mistake. And I think that to invest that money into filling potholes instead of residential cooling grants seems misguided at best. And I hope history will be kind to this decision, and we are not faced with another heat dome with catastrophic loss of life because we didn't think that retrofits for cooling grants was worth it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks. Since I think this draft budget already prioritizes all the things mentioned, in fact, I think it's a tacit admission that we are not going to protect core services, even though that's what the goal of the budget is. I think that this should be used instead to ameliorate some of the cuts to some of the departments instead, most notably the sustainability department. So I've passed on an amendment there.
Okay, can we please go to amendment Q number 2? Councillor Orr, sorry, Councillor Delman. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Orr, if you can add yourself.
Thanks. This morning on my way here, I met a man on the verge of tears who works in this department, saying thanks, for standing up for the sustainability department. So this, I just think if we are going to get rid of this money that hasn't been allocated, it should go to give more security to this department and to the potential jobs that will be lost in that department. So that's all that this is.
You have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Council, any discussion? Councillor Maloney.
Yeah, look, I am not in favour of cutting this, and I mean, I appreciate the spirit in which this amendment is brought, and I think it was worth having a discussion about it. I think that it's a really important program, and before I was on council, I did a whole lot of advocacy towards the provincial government to help fund programs to install cooling as well. So I have, in my personal time, attempted to make sure that the 619 people who lost their lives in the heat dome didn't lose their lives in vain. And I'll vote in favour of this, but I don't think that it does anything to redress the terrible original amendment.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, we're going to put Councillor Orr's amendment to the amendment to a vote. This is Councillor Orr's amendment to the amendment. Okay, and that fails with Councillor Bly abstaining and myself, Councillor Kirby-Young, Dominato, Montague, Klassen, Meisner, Joe, and Joe in opposition. Okay, so going back to the amendment queue, Councillor Orr.
That's everything. I tried to sort of make this more palatable, but you know, if this money is unallocated, that it should go into stopping people from losing their jobs and stopping cuts elsewhere. But nope. Let's take it out and give it to potholes. Great job.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney.
Yeah, and on that note, I wanted to address the last part of this amendment that I think is attempts to portray itself as justifying the first half of it, which is particularly egregious. But one way we can fill potholes and replace street lamps and do other necessary public realm upgrades is to fund engineering properly. Engineering is having its funding cut by 1%. One way we can repair and replace sidewalks is to fund the city's active mobility plan, which covers sidewalks and curb cuts. And
sorry, Councillor, can I get you? Oh, sorry to interrupt. You are in the amendment queue. Thank you.
One way we can repair and replace sidewalks is to fund the city's active mobility plan, which covers sidewalks and curb cuts, and this has and continues to be underfunded in this budget and has been for years. So we're getting a cut to engineering. We're not having increases to the active mobility plan. We all love it when engineering comes and gives a wonderful, interesting presentation about all the great public realm improvements that they've made, the active transport infrastructure, the sidewalks, the curb cuts, the parklets, but we're cutting their funding by 1%. We are not even increasing their funding to cover cost increases. So I think that instead of cutting a program to give vulnerable members of our community who live in non-city owned buildings the ability to save money and to have more livable conditions, maybe we could try funding engineering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I'd like to ask a point of information through you, Chair, to Josh White. Okay, so I just want to be very clear. This is unallocated money on the capital project. Okay, so we have not allocated to any organization yet.
Correct.
Okay, and also I think as you mentioned, there's very likely there will not be many subscriptions to this program for the next year, 2026.
As I described, I think we would expect somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 type projects to subscribe to a program like this with that kind of amount of unallocated funding based on our experience with the program to date.
So 30 to 40 every year or in 4 years of capital cycle?
Correlating to that amount of funding.
Okay, and how many will be the SRO building, do we know?
Difficult to say, but it can go towards purpose-built rental, non-market housing, and SROs are certainly eligible for that program.
Okay. Also, the last question, I heard some comments saying that removing the program is to support rich people in the city. So is there any, income assessment before people applying this program?
No.
Okay. So that statement is actually not right. It's just supporting, this program has nothing to do with the people's income.
No, though we would, we've tended to support projects where there may be lower income individuals that are perhaps particularly vulnerable.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Josh. So also, can you talk more about the provincial programs? So how much money do they have? And what is the threshold at applying that program?
Yeah, they'll provincial, federally, in some cases, the funding the city provides, it'll get leveraged into larger, for example, federal programs, and the province has certain programs for multi-unit residential buildings around things like rebates for heat pumps and things like that. That's where those programs tend to focus. Federally, there's larger retrofit type money that in some cases projects become more attractive or more eligible for those programs with the city funding in place.
Okay, can we direct people to the provincial and federal programs when they have some interest?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So again, I think I heard a lot of emotion here, but emotion will not help us solve the issue. Emotion will create a lot of division. So as we heard from this program is unallocated money, and there's also a broader issue that the province and federal, they have the similar program, which is not within our jurisdiction. So with that, I think with more evidence-based and support the core service that the city, the residents of the city, they are using every single day, is the priority. So of course, I'm going to support this amendment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to speak to the amendment and the motion, and I thought it might be helpful in the context of this debate to share some hard numbers and some other reflections. I think it's really important to remind Council that, yes, of course, it's a budget. There's choices you make in budgets. We make choices around our own personal budgets, and we're making choices about a city budget, which is a good chunk of it it comes from taxpayers. The city has an estimated $500 million infrastructure deficit, and that's our own infrastructure, things we're responsible for as a city. And when we were debating in council chambers a number of weeks ago, an innovative proposal to leverage city-owned land to develop market rental, which would have delivered revenue to the city, I asked the question about deferred maintenance for city-owned non-market housing. The city owns over 18 buildings with capital maintenance responsibilities. Currently, there's approximately $45 million in deferred maintenance impacting 14 buildings. These are things that we're responsible for, and the residents in those buildings are equally entitled to have safety provisions met. So I think it's important to remind council about that. But I also think I kind of heard it, and maybe I'm reading into sort of the commentary about, well, we'll put money into potholes. Well, putting money into potholes, sidewalks, lighting is actually about safety. I met with a resident recently who says they don't want to ride their bike anymore because they don't feel safe on the streets because they might fall, and they're a senior citizen. They like riding their bike, but they don't want to do it. And I've had the same instance. Sidewalks. For anyone who's got a mobility issue, many people have complained to me about the state of our sidewalks. My father lives with me. He has a mobility issue, and he's asked me repeatedly, why are we not taking better care of our sidewalks so people can walk safely and move safely? Lighting is another safety issue. People want to have better lighting. I helped residents downtown near BC Place around lighting issues. these are actually not frivolous things that we're looking at. They actually have an impact on people's everyday lives. So I think, again, we may have different perspectives on this table about where we should allocate revenues from the city and funding, but there is more to these things, and they are not frivolous. They are actually important, and they do impact people, and they impact seniors, they impact people with disabilities, and I think, and we also have our own maintenance and capital infrastructure that we need to take care of that, as you've heard from the numbers I cited, has been deferred because of allocation. So I'll leave my comments there, but I'm happy to support Councillor Zhou's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks. Let me be abundantly clear. I think the city should be filling potholes. I think the city should be replacing sidewalks. I think the city should be improving LED street lamps and replacing poles and other necessary public realm upgrades. I don't know where it was determined that I said that those were frivolous. I absolutely did not say that those were frivolous. Those are core services, and we 100% need to fund those. I was under the impression that we were not going to cut any core services with this budget. So that's where that comment came from. That we were already doing this work, and that this amendment is an absolute surprise, and it comes to a cost of a program that is dearly needed. So I've moved another amendment to try and find some ways for this money to be spent if we were already filling potholes and doing that work. So you want to move to the amendment queue?
So if you can move to the amendment queue. Councillor Orr, if you can get on the queue. Great, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, this is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, if this money is unallocated and we are already doing core services, that it could be used to fund things like micromobility and other things. That's it.
You have a seconder? Councillor Maloney? Council, is there any discussion? Councillor Bly?
Thanks very much. I appreciate Councillor Orr's efforts to sort of guide the reallocation of this capital, these capital funds into different important upgrades that are needed in our city. I abstained from the previous vote. I'll abstain from this vote. And I think just because at the end of the day, we're going down a path here that I think is just emblematic of the problem with this budget. I'd like to get back to discussing the original operating and capital budget overall, so we can be looking at the broader picture. We seem to be picking off one particular issue through an amendment that's been brought to the floor without a lot of heads up, and so we don't have the time to really fully understand all the implications, which is again problematic of this whole budget. So while I appreciate Councillor Orr's efforts here, there are a number of priorities that are not listed here that I think are incredibly important to the city, and I think of particularly infrastructure, community centers and libraries infrastructure, Britannia, Renewal, Raycam, others that have been in line for capital investment for a very long time. So if we go down this path, I just think we're picking winners and losers, and I'd like to get us back to thinking more holistically around the broader issue with this budget and debate that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, I'll provide a quick comment and just to ground us again. This is about the 2026 year and a short-term allocation to fulfill emergent needed priorities. Council will be completing a 4-year capital plan when we look holistically at all of these different components. Right now, we do have pretty significant resourcing already attached to this area. And I will agree with one thing that Councillor Maloney said, is that we have been underfunding a lot of our core areas for years. I had moved a couple of different motions over my years on council, which daylighted the several $100 million over time that this council has spent on senior government priorities, quite honestly, at the expense of neglecting our own, because nobody pays for the city services other than us. The other motion I moved was to actually articulate and quantify our infrastructure deficit. Councillor Dominato mentioned that. It's $500 million per year. These things are really important. This is not a 4-year capital plan and a bigger conversation. This is a short-term allocation for need things. I was in Chinatown. I'll leave you with one example just last week. It was me, the BIA there. There were concerns certainly about the poles and the lights and how that provides a sense of welcoming and safety. If people don't feel safe, they don't go, they don't visit. But also about the state of the street between Main and Gore Avenue on Pender, and how unsafe that was, and how worried they were about seniors crossing that particular street, which is a really busy corner. It's got some vegetable stores, it's got some folks, some low-cost areas and restaurants, and the seniors are now afraid to cross that road. They're very concerned about the state of it. So yes, we have been underfunding these services. Yes, we're trying to right size on this budget and redirect. And yes, there are other programs that the province provides, and there are several of them are listed, including on the Zero Emissions Innovation Centre website, which is a helpful resource, as well as all the BC government websites that co-ops, multi-unit buildings, and others are eligible for. So again, it's pretty similar to dealing with the public safety piece. We cannot neglect anymore because we are at the state of our assets degrading to the point that public safety is compromised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Maloney.
Point of information to staff through the chair. Does the revenue that pays for the capital budget come from property taxes?
This specific program, yes, it does.
Thank you. How much revenue would, say, a 2% property tax increase bring in?
So a 2% would be $24 million.
$24 million.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry, just looking at the time, I've been reminded we have about 5.5 minutes left. So would council like to, would someone like to file a motion to extend to complete this item or this amendment? Okay, so Councillor Orr, are you okay? So, all right. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Great. We will keep going to finish this amendment. Thank you. Okay. Councillor Orr, you're in the queue.
That's enough for me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Meisner, you're in the queue.
Sorry, that's holdover. I'm okay. Thanks.
Oh, sorry. And bear with me for once. So everything's flying left, right, and center here. So what we're going to do is, seeing no one else in amendment queue 2 on Councillor Orr's amendment to the amendment, we're going to put Councillor Orr's amendment to the amendment to a vote. If we can please go to the voting panel. Great. And Councillor Orr's amendment to the amendment fails with myself, Councillor Kirby-Young, Dominato, Montague, Klassen, Meisner, and Joe in opposition, and Councillors Bly, Fry, and Maloney abstaining. Okay, and I think I might have sort of altered the amendment queue a little bit, so I apologize, but we are in amendment queue 1, and Councillor Fry, you are up.
Yeah, I have a point of order, Mayor. I'm wondering if you can rule if this motion or this amendment is in order under 8.7F. I find it to be incorrect and frivolous because it names this as unallocated, but in fact they are allocated funds.
Okay.
So unallocated capital funds, originally allocated, so that by definition is
So
kind
we
of
will
a
take a
contradiction.
3-minute recess if I can have city manager and the clerk. All right, everyone, I'm going to get started here. We can get the room back. Okay. So, Councillor Fry, thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. After a discussion with the city manager and the team, it looks like this is in order, and I'll actually get Colin to describe why this is in order. If we can start the time, I know we're a little bit over the timer, but if we can take a couple of seconds to.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the unallocated that's referenced in the motion, it's our understanding that refers that, or I'll clarify that that refers to funds that have not been allocated to external commitments, so have not been committed to outside parties. With respect to the capital budget amount specifically, that is part of the proposed recommendation for the 2026 budget, and so is subject to council decision.
Thank you. We're in time. So that's everyone who's there's no one in the queue now for the amendment that was submitted by Councillor Joe. So seeing no one else in the queue, we are voting on Councillor Joe's amendment to 1G. And so we can please go to the voting panel. Great. Great. Councillor Kirby-Young. Do you,
Sorry, I'm just looking for clarification. Can we have it on screen so we know what we're voting
can
on?
we please get the amendment on screen? And this would be Councillor Joe's amendment. Great. And that that amendment passes with Councillors Bly, Fry, Orr, and Maloney in opposition. Okay. So what we agreed to was we would complete that amendment, and now we're going to recess till 1 o'clock and continue with the business. Thank you.
o'clock. I am moving back to the main queue, and I have Councillor Zhou. I'll advance you. Councillor Zhou?
Oh, that's a holdover for the last one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bly, go ahead.
Thanks very much. I have an amendment.
Okay, I'll move us to an amendment queue. There you go. I've just advanced you there. Go ahead, Councillor Bly.
Great. So this amendment is a referral amendment to refer the proposed 2026 operating and capital budget back to staff with direction. And I'll just provide a few comments related to this amendment to sort of set the groundwork. As you'll notice, it's not sort of looking to chop the budget up one way or the other on the floor. It's a straight up referral. And it's responsive to the times that we're heading into. We know that these are challenging times, not just for residents, but the city itself. And as each of you know, colleagues who are here, we are feeling the squeeze in every direction. And the reality is simple. Everything the city does is costing more. It costs more to run programs, it costs more to maintain infrastructure, and it costs more to recruit and retain staff. And we have contracts and obligations, especially with our unionized workforce, that we can't just set aside. The pressure is real, and we need to approach it with clear eyes and a responsible plan. And that's why today I'm proposing this amendment that seeks to get this budget right. Because a budget isn't just about a headline, it's the operating system, and it actually sets the vision of an entire city. It determines how well we respond to emergencies, how community centers run, how parks are maintained, and how programs and services survive, and how we protect the quality of life people count on. The budget we are being asked to approve today touts a 0% property tax increase, but is only able to do that by adding $47 million in new and increased fees to close the gap. That's $47 million. I think we need to let that sink in. So I support keeping taxes low. I do. But keeping taxes low only works when we're transparent about how we're paying for everything else. And right now, that transparency just isn't there. Staff have told us clearly a true baseline scenario without policy choices would point to something like a 5 to 7% tax increase. We're choosing not to do that, and that's fine. But if we make that choice, we have a duty to understand exactly how the money is being made up elsewhere through fees, service charges, and the internal shifts. And today, that picture is incomplete. So if we just think about staffing for a moment, between 2015 and 2020, the city added 714 frontline and support staff to strengthen services. If this budget now is reduced or restructured or shifts those roles, the public deserves to know what that means for city service levels and capacity. We cannot make responsible decisions when we can't see the consequences. And then there are our fixed obligations, especially collective agreements and long-term commitments. The mayor stated during the initial 0% property tax motion publicly that this budget will not result in layoffs of unionized workers. I thought that was an important promise, and I supported that. But that promise has now been broken. We've got cuts in this budget resulting in 270 out of 400 eliminated positions being union jobs. We need transparent financial detail to understand the impact of these layoffs. We also need to think about how residents see the budget. When talking about the budget, they're not talking about mill rates. They're talking about their lives. Are my community center hours changing? Will programs be cut? Is emergency response keeping up with demand? Are arts, parks, public spaces protected? And while we did outreach, we did so under the assumption of the council direction from June, not the interception of this motion in October. So all of the feedback, close to 6,500 respondents, was looking at various scenarios, and still 42% of residents and a slightly lower percentage from the business community, but on par, close to 40%, said they would be happy with a 5% increase to maintain city services. And we had a record-breaking 621 people register to speak. And of those, we heard overwhelmingly so, including homeowners and businesses, they opposed the 0% budget proposal. And we won't go on the petitions, but thousands of names have been signed to petitions. So before I close, I just need to address another narrative. We've heard from ABC and the mayor that they've suggested that e-com is the main reason police costs are high, and this is not accurate, and it's also not fair. Ecom are the call takers, are the very first people Vancouverites reach to when they're terrified, they're hurt, or in crisis. They drop everything in those moments to keep people safe. They deserve respect, not criticism, especially when we rely on them every single day. So my amendment asks for urgently a full, honest picture of service cuts, a clear explanation of reductions, and a budget that clearly reflects the public and city priorities. This isn't about delay, it's about responsibility, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks very much for the amendment. I just think this is the right thing to do for all the
Sorry,
reasons.
Councillor, I got to pause you for 1 sec here. Stop timer. Sorry, Councillor Bly, do you have a seconder? Great, thank you, Councillor Fry. Sorry, Councillor, I sort of interrupt you there. Please go ahead.
Yeah, all good. I was just going to say I support it for all the reasons mentioned. I took the liberty of trying to summarize every commenter's comments on Blue Sky, and it was clear that transparency was the overarching sort of theme there. I couldn't type transparency fast enough. It was a common theme, and again, like this is my first budget, and I really want to do take my oath of office seriously, and I feel that I can't do that with the budget the way it's proposed. So yeah, I will be supporting this. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maloney.
Thanks. I really appreciate this referral, and I hope that it's seriously considered by my council colleagues, because this would really help me to make some decisions about what we're getting into and a responsible way of moving forward. I'd also like to talk about briefly Ecom 911. I was lucky enough to have a tour of Ecom 911 very recently because I'm interested in learning about it. And I was really surprised to learn how Ecom 911 came about, and to see I guess the piecemeal approach to cobbling together funding for it across municipalities. I mean, I would logically think that it would be a provincial responsibility. And I mean, I think that if we were being consistent, I think that we would be talking to the province about how to logically and reasonably fund a more centralised approach instead of individual municipalities funding Ecom 911. But I also want to talk about what a great job that the people do who work for Ecom 911 and reiterate that they are doing the best with the job that they have before them, and I'm extremely supportive. So that being said, I am very supportive of this referral.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, we are going to be voting on the amendment. If we can please go to the voting panel. Okay, and so the amendment fails with myself, Councillors Kirby-Young, Dominato, Montague, Klassen, Meisner, and Joe in opposition. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the main queue. Councillor Bly, do you have any other?
All for now, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Klassen.
Thanks, Mayor. So I have an amendment that I've circulated.
Great.
So
if I
maybe
can
we
please
that on
get
screen.
you to the amendment queue. And if you can add yourself to the queue. Please go ahead. And do you have a seconder? Great, Councillor Kirby-Young, thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor. So there was a lively discussion at the Park Board last night, a lot of discussion around fees, and I know that has been a continuing discussion that's been happening during the budget debates, both in public and amongst councillors. And so I have tabled something here that very much aligns with the zero means zero commitment that you, Mayor, have put forward for us to support. So if you see there is a further that will be attached to recommendation B in this report. Obviously, the first part of it, unamended, just really supporting the request for the funding, both operating budget and the transfer. And then, of course, this would be an allocation of an additional $800,000 from within the city's overall existing budget, representing the revenue associated solely with the proposed 2026 recreation fee increases in order to hold community center recreation admission passes, lessons, programs, and permit fees at a 0% increase for 2026. And again, consistent with Mayor Sim's Zero Means Zero commitment to protect community centers and their program at a time when I think it's definitely most needed for the public. Been telling us that affordability is incredibly important to them, and this is a way for us to make sure that we commit to that goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maloney.
Could you put my timer back to 0, please?
Yeah, we can restart the councillor's timer, please. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this. I'm sorry it took so many people investing their time in expressing their concern at going along to a park board last night to make it happen. But I do have a question to staff through the chair. There was, we know that maintenance is the responsibility of the city thanks to an agreement with Park Board. Historically, there was information from staff that the question was, what are the expenditure cuts related to REFM capital support and respective service level reductions? And under the heading maintenance, it's the November 18, 2025 memo. It's not a long one, shouldn't be difficult to find. Under maintenance, it says a strategic reduction in low impact maintenance activities is being implemented. This includes scaling back seasonal installations such as holiday lighting, transitioning certain services such as maintenance, repairs and cleaning of park amenities, including picnic tables, benches, wooden bridges, to a billable model. What does this mean for parks and maintenance? How does this work?
So I'll start. So in general, a billable model would be assigning pricing essentially internally to help guide staff in prioritization decisions around where to focus. So it would be a way to help make sure that maintenance is prioritized towards the more frontline service-oriented applications of maintenance.
And where does that funding come away from? If it's deprioritised, what's deprioritised in that case?
Well, I think, again, the objective of a billable model would be to make sure that of the maintenance funds that are allocated in the city budget, and those funds, depending on the nature of them, could be within the real estate and facilities management department or the parks department. It could be either, but the objective of a billable model is to ensure that of the amount that we have, it's deployed and prioritized in the most efficient way to support the objectives of the department.
And when you say billable, is it billable to the park board or is it billable to users of park board facilities?
No, it wouldn't be have any relation to the users. It would be relation to the allocation within the city's budget. So it would be determining whether we place the budget in park board or place the budget within facilities management. But ultimately, the objective is to guide decision making at the operational level so that the funds are deployed efficiently.
So it's an accounting mechanism largely. Great. Thanks for explaining that.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fry.
So similar to my earlier question, and actually, sorry, Chair, if through you I could ask a question of Colin. Similar to my earlier question when we were reallocating $300,000 to support the patio program from the engineering budget, and you described it as a fairly nominal amount. We're now with this 800,000 at what, 1.1 million, which is seemingly less and less nominal. Does this require some kind of indication of where the funds are going to come from on this particular reallocation, which I do support, by the way? I think this is an important consideration.
Yes, so we've looked at this specific one, and the preference is still to manage this amendment within the existing budget and report back with opportunities to offset the revenue increase through other means across the city budget. This specific adjustment is $800,000. The previous adjustments were approximately $300,000. So in total, it's just over $1 million. $1 million is still less than 1% of the $120 million that we're identifying across revenues and expenses across the budget to balance at the 0% increase. And at this level, we can manage within the budget and report back. But I would, to your point, I would say that if additional items are added and the amount grows, we're just at the threshold of what would be managed. So for additional ones, we would look to request offsets.
Okay, if I may on follow-up, just because I don't want to see us taking money from like micromanaging park board's budget and then taking it from elsewhere in park board and shortchanging them to pay for this. This is coming from outside of park board. This is elsewhere in the city budget, TBD.
Yeah, that's correct. The direction or the amendment that's proposed is clear that it would be from other parts of the city going to Parks Board so that it supports it supports the initiative without drawing on Parks Board to make up the difference.
And do you have any hints? And I realize this is on the fly, but do you have any hints as to where that might come from?
Well, as I said, we would look around revenues, and again, as a percentage of the city budget overall, it's a very small percentage of the city budget, and less than 1% of the amount that we're identifying to balance. So I think within that context, it's a manageable level, but just at the threshold of what would be within our materiality to manage.
Okay, thanks, Colin.
Thank you.
Yeah, generally speaking, I mean, I think I do support the idea of offsetting the impacts on users and obviously the leisure pass and all the accessible and wonderful opportunities that parks and recreation afford. So I do support this in principle, although I remain troubled by the fact that there's really no clear articulation of where any of these budget cuts are actually coming from. And so it remains a concern, but I support the intention of this nonetheless. Notwithstanding, I don't support the entire budget, but there we go.
Thank you very much. Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks. Similar sort of comments there as I support this, and it shows that we're at least listening to some of the concerns from the community. Just a point of information through staff to the mover. To the chair, to staff, sorry. Does this sort of guarantee that the leisure access pass will be maintained, that it won't be cut, or is there, is it sort of signifying a council direction that we guarantee that the leisure access pass continues?
Yeah, and I think it was in one of the budget memo responses that was shared with council and is available publicly that, just to clarify, that the leisure access pass was never part of a proposal to be adjusted in the budget. So, this is not impact that in any way.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on a point of information through you, Chair, if I might, to Colin, because we did hear that from a number of speakers that suggested that the leisure access pass was on the chopping block. And can you just confirm back to us 100%? Because I think there was a lot of fear mongering and a lot of misinformation that was put out there. And to my understanding, the leisure access pass remains. It's a really important principle to provide access to parks and recreation for everybody, regardless of their means and ability to pay, and that program remains and the affordability levels remain. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The program remains.
Okay, so that fear that people had was completely unfounded and not based on any move or any proposal in the park board budget.
As was clarified in that public memo, we've set the record straight in that regard.
Great, thank you. We've had a lot of misinformation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, we will now vote on the amendment. If we can please go to the voting panel, and councillors, if you can register your votes. Great, and that passes unanimously. All right. So just going back to the main queue, Councillor Klassen, anything else?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Orr,
Thank you. Yes, moving amendment.
if you can please go to the amendment queue, add yourself to the queue. And do you have a seconder? Great, Councillor Blythe, thank you. Councillor Orr, please go ahead.
Awesome, thanks. Yes, moving a referral to change direction on the budget to fund our services. The current 0% plan, I believe, and many commenters also said benefits the super rich investors, millionaires, and billionaires, and the biggest property owners will get the biggest benefit. As a result, we're looking at millions and millions in cuts. This is a proposal that provides a pathway to give some affordability for regular homeowners while still ensuring that we tax those who can afford to pay. So it's a way to protect those middle class homeowners, and still provide money for services. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So seeing no one else in the queue, we will put that to a vote. That's Councillor Orr's amendment. If you can please go to the voting panel. Okay, and that fails with myself, Councillor Kirby-Young, Councillor Dominato, Councillor Montague, Councillor Klassen, Councillor Meisner, and Councillor Joe in opposition, and Councillors Bly and Fry abstaining. Okay. Councillor Orr, did you have anything else?
No, that's everything. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Maloney.
Thanks. Yeah, so this is our last opportunity to speak, make general comments and remarks. Is that right?
Yes, that would be it.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm disappointed that that Councillor Bly's referral wasn't voted in favour of by more councillors. We are being asked to vote on the general direction of this budget, and I am not happy about the general direction that this budget signifies. I am very disappointed that a modest property tax increase wasn't considered, given that the needs that I've been hearing about from people both in the by-election campaign and since are housing affordability, the homelessness crisis, our capital infrastructure, and the future of our young people. And this budget, this general direction doesn't serve those aims. We're seeing pretty major cuts to the departments like planning, sustainability, and no increase, and a 1% cut to engineering. You know, these are really important for our kids, for our seniors, for our frontline services. I know we're saying that we're keeping our frontline services, but I'm concerned about not having enough information about what we are cutting, what long-term or not particularly visible aspects of the city's work are being cut. I'm really concerned that this council has presided over the hiring of over 700 new staff, and now we're getting rid of 400 of those. We've got a pretty massive change of direction. I'm concerned. I'm flabbergasted that we're hearing tomorrow a member motion about kids mental health, called National Child and Youth Mental Health Day Actions, that asks for ideas to promote youth mental health awareness in anticipation of National Child and Youth Mental Health Day 2026 and implement promotion ideas as feasible. When downstairs in our corridor, there's a poster from CUPE that talks about the serious challenges that young people face. And I stopped and I had a look at it the other day. And it talks about the serious challenges that young people face, like addressing increasing housing costs that we have power to control, and instead we're underfunding, investing in weakened social services. You know, we're at best keeping, maintaining, and in some cases reducing social services, addressing high youth unemployment and precarious work, low wages. We saw this council preside over a cut to the abandoning the living wage for city workers, having to work multiple jobs. You know, if we're committed to things like children and young people's mental health and reducing deaths and injuries on our roads, making sure we've got a vibrant city, I don't like this general direction. This general direction is not bringing us closer to what we say is important to us. We can't just say that housing affordability and reducing homelessness and looking after our young people and our seniors, we can't just keep saying that's important. We can't say that the right to cool is a fundamental human right and then reduce funding to that. We can't say that core services are important and then reduce the engineering budget by 1% instead of increasing it at least as much as cost increases. So I'll be voting against this budget because this budget does not put our money where our mouth is, in summary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Montague.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. It's unfortunate that when staff figured out a way to find significant amounts of revenue so that the individuals sitting in these chairs don't have to have the same conversations over and over that we continue to have. The Vancouver Land Development Corp would have leveraged $8 billion worth of assets of our property endowment fund to provide tens of millions of dollars every year in short term and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue every year in the long term. Non-tax, non-fee revenue, while providing thousands of housing units for working people. Councillor Fry, Councillor Orr, Councillor Maloney, and Councillor Bly all voted against it, yet they want to keep using property tax as an ATM. When we have discussions and make decisions, I always ask myself, are we spending taxpayer money in a way that actually makes a change for the better? And I think it's time to focus, prioritize the city's role and resources, goals and outcomes, effectiveness and efficiencies. I've seen what happens when government makes decisions that sound good on paper, but have no measurable positive outcomes, or invest in programs that don't work. Residents of this city want a city that feels safe, that's clean and enjoyable to be in. They want to know that when they pick up the phone because they need help or that they have a problem that the city needs to address, someone will respond and action will be taken. When we invest in the right things, we get results. And if you look at public safety, for example, it's police and fire that are under our authority, responsibility, and jurisdiction. We're investing in both of those, and crime is down across the board. The lowest citywide violent crime rate in 23 years. The downtown east side is one example of an area that is vastly better. It's in a vastly better state than what it was when we took office. Taxpayers expect common sense from their local government. They don't want overreach. They don't want scope creep or funds diverted to non-essential services, discretionary projects that are not within the jurisdiction, authority, or responsibility of Vancouver. And they expect us to avoid spending money on things that don't move the needle. A 0% increase makes sense to me. We're making choices that support the city's needs and not spending taxpayer money across an ever-growing list of wants. Again, this budget reflects a practical approach to governing. It respects taxpayers. It stops using property taxes as an ATM machine, and it strengthens frontline services. For that reason, I'll be voting in favor of it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clausen.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're about to vote on a 0% increase for property taxes in our city. And to my knowledge, it's the first time I recollect there being one, certainly in the last 25 years that I've been following local government in Vancouver and certainly in the region. And with a $2.3 billion budget, looking at $120 million worth of cost efficiencies and savings, that works out to be roughly 0.5% of our budget. There is room in this budget, and our staff have told us they can find those efficiencies. So when we consider this budget, it's important to take an honest look at how we arrived at this moment. Vancouver's history is filled with times when the city focused squarely on the responsibilities that municipal governments were built to handle. You don't have to go all that far back to see pictures and stories of how cleaner streets, reliable services, and a civic infrastructure that worked with clarity and purpose. In recent decades, we've seen that the City of Vancouver has been moving away from that mentality. The city gradually expanded into areas outside of our jurisdiction. That's extremely well documented. This happened slowly and often with very good intentions, but the cumulative effect has been significant. Vancouver has been carrying responsibilities that belong to other levels of government, full stop. And our systems have become stretched in ways that they were never designed to manage. It's not our job to subsidize senior levels of government, and it's unfair to ask Vancouver taxpayers to foot the bill of an ever-increasing bill year after year. Residents feel this in very practical ways. They feel it when a road repair takes longer than it should. They feel it when recreation needs maintenance, or when community facilities are working hard with limited bandwidth. And to be clear, these outcomes are not the fault of city staff, but the product of a civic structure that has drifted away from its core purpose. This budget allows us to turn it in the right direction. It strengthens the areas where the city can make the most direct and meaningful impact in the lives of Vancouverites: infrastructure maintenance, emergency services, libraries, parks, and community centers are protected and supported. And I want to thank Council for supporting my amendment to that effect. And this budget does this while laying out a strong, long-term foundation for the city's fiscal health. It replenishes our reserves and ensures that we are continuing to make significant investments in renewing our infrastructure. Municipal government functions best when it is disciplined and focused. This zero means zero budget puts us in the right direction. It supports affordability while protecting and enhancing the services that people rely upon every day. I'm proud to support this budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm going to shoot straight from the hip and straight from the heart on this one, because this is my second term on council, and I have seen a number of approaches to budget. And I will say, with an almost $2.4 billion budget, finding 5% in order to recalibrate and refocus the city on spending on the things that matter to people is not a heavy lift, and it is not a big ask. We quantified earlier, and we know that we've got a $500 million infrastructure deficit. We know we have spent significantly to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars over the years on priorities that fall under the auspices of senior levels of government, and yet we have woefully neglected our own house and our own infrastructure, and it is telling the tale. This is our very clear direction to reset that focus and prioritize on the things that people said mattered to them the most. Roads and sidewalks getting repaired quickly has been said, permits being issued without delays, allowing businesses to feel they're supported, such as with the waiving of the patio fees that we mentioned this morning to support vibrancy in our city. When we send these signals and we know that more housing can get built, more jobs get created, and our city becomes a much more vibrant place to call home. People want to know that they are being provided with quality services and they are protected and strengthened at a time when affordability is weighing heavily on households across the city. That is young families, that is young people that want to live in the city, that is seniors that want to age in place. There has been an incredible amount of misinformation, and I would say fear-mongering about what is included in the budget. And I actually think that a lot of the concerns that were expressed by all the speakers that we had came from a place of misinformation. And I think there's a lot of alignment between the direction that this council has given in terms of what investments are maintained and what we heard from the public and from speakers. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars over and above previous councils in arts and culture, libraries, community centers, and infrastructure maintenance. Planting trees will continue, graying green water infrastructure will continue, all of that work continues. We are spending more on these things in 2025 than we were in 2021. The services are now better funded, better managed, and more stable. One of the early steps that we took was to fund our public safety services fully, police and fire. We know these investments are paying off. I've said this and I'll say it again. I do not play favorites. I do not think we should play favorites with our public safety services. When we have decisions where councillors are voting for example, a routine year-end adjustments to benefits, and they support them for firefighters and not for police officers, I don't even know what to do with that. I don't know what signal that sends to people that one set of firefighters, or one set of first responders, I should say, show up to call and they're covered, but others don't deserve the same benefits. That's not the kind of city I want to be. We're now in a difficult context. We are making choices and priorities again in the context of a lot of affordability. The budget is a symbol of the values and what we value. And what we value is taking care of our seniors so they can cross the roads, putting the investment where it is the strongest. And I'm going to reiterate this. It protects arts and culture grants. I have heard a number of arts and culture individual organizations, and I regret very much the fear-mongering that has happened that have caused them concern that they may not receive this grants. This is simply not true. The arts and culture grants funding envelope, as the same with the community grants, is being maintained and protected. All of the money that flows out remains in place. Organizations that have spoken and worried about this, whether it's the Culture, I've heard representatives from Bard on the Beach, I've heard others that spoke, do not have to worry that core city funding that I've heard a number of them state, for example, on CBC this morning, is essential to their ongoing operations because of the dependability, is in jeopardy. It is not. This is about getting our own house in order. Libraries continue to be funded and supported. Parks and Recreation continues to be funded and supported. We're now trying to also clean up and support our neighborhoods and our streets. I mentioned earlier, I met in Chinatown, who were concerned about people coming down and feeling the area is safe and welcoming. Sidewalks were clear and that their roads are paved so that their seniors are not tripping on potholes. Our businesses need to know that they support them. They are the folks that employ everybody, that maintain jobs and people's livelihood in a time when it is becoming increasingly challenging and difficult. People often talk about the mill rates in Vancouver and how our property taxes are lower, but what they don't say is that our real estate is the most expensive. The cost of living is incredibly expensive for people, and they just don't have that much left over after they're putting a roof over their house, and this includes renters, because when somebody is renting a new unit or building a new building, it just causes those rents to go up, which includes the property taxes that are baked in.
Councillor, sir, we're at time.
So I am proud to support this budget.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Orr.
Yeah, thanks. I know we're all doing our closing comments, but I have one last amendment to refer.
Okay, if you can please go to the amendment queue. Sorry, sorry, Councillor, if you can just add yourself to the amendment. Thank you very much. And do you have a seconder?
Yeah.
Apply. Thank you. Okay.
That the report be referred back to staff with direction to conduct a new budget survey because the other one was done on those different scenarios. So a new one based on 0% budget direction, and return with a full draft budget, which is as detailed as budgets in 2025, 2024, and 2023. This is just, yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in the queue, we'll put Councillor Orr's amendment to a vote. If you can please go to the voting panel. Okay, and that fails with myself, Councillors Kirby Young, Dominato, Montague, Klassen, Meisner, and Joe in opposition. Councillor Orr, did you have anything else?
Yeah, well, we heard from unions, homeowners, renters, students, parents, seniors, sustainable design and building companies, car share companies, arts organizations, festivals, so many more. I just want to thank everyone who signed up to speak, everyone who wrote letters, the unions for doing letter writing campaigns. I still don't think I can uphold my sworn duty to vote on this with very little detail. Zero does not mean zero. If there is misinformation and fear mongering, it's because we are relying essentially on whistleblowers and the media, and I don't think we should be gaslighting residents on what we should be doing. I also don't understand the term property tax as an ATM machine. That kind of just seems like the basic function of government is to tax and use that money for services. And this is what people want. And the budget survey showed that. The people speaking showed that. Now is not the time for austerity. This is the most opposed budget in history. Millions of cuts to services, staff, and programs that will hurt Vancouver, in my opinion. And we don't know the full impact because the budget document is opaque, barren of detail. It's obfuscatory. The tax freeze benefits investors and the super rich the most, more than regular homeowners, and does nothing for renters, middle income, and the poor. There's 1 in 5 residential properties are owned by investors, and that's who this is going to invest, and that's who's using their property as an ATM, by the way. Grants are being frozen below inflation, but will also spread thinner than ever before. The city is halting service agreements with nonprofits. We saw that Kingsway Community Station now are having to compete for a limited grant pool. And that's a service that provides much needed drop-in space for sex workers, keeps people safe. The neighborhood is fully behind that. That means we'll have less grant funding, and many organizations that rely on grants and service agreements to deliver services will have to make cuts. Cuts to climate sustainability programs will make Vancouver less safe from climate events such as heat domes, cold snaps, and rising sea levels. Rising event permit fees as much as 2,500% will mean higher prices and beloved community events being canceled. This budget mistreats city staff, making them terrified of losing their jobs without cause, firing hundreds of them and leaving the rest with poor morale to work at the city. This budget underfunds libraries, meaning that we will likely see cuts to hours, staff, and services, as we heard from the union and the board. The city's own budget survey found that only 10% of residents support Kensington's tax freeze. They've ignored this survey entirely. The city's own civic satisfaction survey that a majority of residents say that every single city service is important to maintain, and this budget maintains none of them. In summary, when you freeze regular tax increases for all property owners in a system where a small number of people and organizations own huge swaths of property, everyone else has to pay for tax breaks for the super rich. That means me, that means you, that means everybody. Higher fees, higher prices, and steep cuts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I spent my career in working in healthcare sectors in hospital operations. During that time, I learned a simple truth about the system that works. They need clear priority, dependable structure, and resource allocated in the right place. A city is no different. Residents see the results of our decision in the reliability of their everyday services. When garbage is picked up on time, when roads are well maintained, when recreation centers are open and accessible, people know their local government is working for them. This is the job in front of us. As a city, we need to go back to the basics, focus on the delivering high quality frontline services. Over the past 3 years, we've taken meaningful steps to restore stability and strengthen city's financial health. Our reserves have increased from $33 million to $177 million. That's an increase of 436%. We're newly added $144 million to prepare for the future needs of our residents. Emergency services are now properly funded. Core maintenance is receiving sustained attention instead of being deferred year after year. And our public safety is at the best level in the past 23 years. These actions have created the foundation we need for dependable services delivery. And this zero means zero budget allow us to take the next step forward. Families across Vancouver are feeling real cost pressure. A 0% property tax increase offers meaningful support at a time when every household is trying to manage rising expenses. I think every day about the future of my son who will inherit it in this city. Well, I want him to live in a city that is safe, affordable, and well-run. This budget supports that future. It protects core services, strengthens operations, maintains operating hours for community services and the library, and builds the kind of stable, well-run city that future generations deserve. To fund the programs residents care about, we need to make smart, long-term decisions. Vancouverites expect City Hall to spend their money thoughtfully and deliver real value for every tax dollar. I also want to address the issue of this public survey. Claiming that the survey results represent the entire city is not only factually wrong, it's discriminatory with colonial mentality. Out of the 6,400 responses, do you know how many were completed in language other than English? 8. That is 0.1%. Yet we all know Vancouver is probably the most diverse city on this planet, with 44% of Vancouverites speak English as their second language. 27% use non-English language at home, and 6% has no English language knowledge at all. And out of that, 37% are the group that are seniors over 55 years old. Those cultural communities were ignored in the past many years, and that's the reason why seeing this is representing the city is not right. Their voice was not captured, and that is not acceptable. Next year, I will bring forward some new ideas to ensure meaningful participation from our cultural community before the engagement starts. But today, we must be honest. That survey does not represent the voice of the city. Within my own network alone, I can easily gather 2,000 people who support a 0% increase, but who could not fill in the survey in English. With that, I'm proud to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fry.
Well, on that, I don't support this budget, and I want to take a moment to reflect on the hundreds of people who took the time to speak to this budget, this zero means zero budget. I believe most of, if not all of them, live and pay taxes in this city. And as a council, we owe them a debt of gratitude for speaking to what matters to them as residents of this city. Not Victoria, not North Van, not Penticton, but residents and ratepayers of this city. So thank you to everyone. As elected officials, we carry a profound responsibility, not just to make decisions, but to ensure those decisions do no harm to the people we serve. Budgets aren't just numbers on a page, they're moral documents. They reflect our priorities, values, and the tangible impacts on our communities. When a budget lacks clarity and detail, it becomes impossible to fully understand those impacts. Approving a budget without sufficient transparency isn't just a procedural risk, it's a risk to the people who will rely on us for employment and the public who rely on us for services and things that make our city livable. We heard comments from councillors in support of this budget that members of the public, folks from the arts and culture community are fear-mongering. Well, it was Ralph Waldo Emerson who said that knowledge is the antidote to fear. Residents, parents, seniors, folks with disabilities, workers, renters, park users, climate activists, people all have legitimate fear for what this budget might mean because they are being denied the insights and knowledge that allows them to know what this budget is about, and they're left with the nagging reality that austerity budgets often harm the most vulnerable people in our society. This budget process has denied council the opportunity to understand and scrutinize the budget, and in that, it has denied us the opportunity to do the job that we were elected to do. We took an oath of office to be accountable to the decisions that we make and the actions we take in the course of our duties. Our duty is not to rubber stamp proposals, but to scrutinize them. Accountability means asking hard questions and demanding clear answers. Without that, we've abdicated our responsibility. The principle of do no harm should guide every vote we cast. And we cannot confidently say that this budget will protect and support our residents, and therefore voting for it would be irresponsible. A vague budget opens the door to unintended consequences, cuts to critical programs, inequitable resource allocation, and long-term financial instability. These harms are not hypothetical, they're very real risks. We can't gamble with the well-being of our city based on assumptions or promises or slogans. Our residents deserve certainty, not ambiguity. Voting against this budget is not obstruction, it's stewardship. It's a commitment to our transparency, to our accountability, to our values, and to the principles that our decisions must never cause harm. Until we have the details, I cannot, in good conscience, support this budget.
Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. When I look at this budget, I see an opportunity to really improve the way that the city is delivering services. But really, most of all, refocusing on core services. And that's something we've heard from Vancouverites as something they want to see at City Hall for many years. And I really strongly believe that that's what this budget is delivering. When we first started discussing the budget, gosh, several weeks ago, a month ago, I said in this chamber that I would only support a property tax freeze if it protected the frontline services that Vancouverites rely on, including community centers, libraries, arts and culture grants, and those amenities that people in our city rely on every day. And I really believe that through the hard work of our staff and the guidance of council, we've achieved it. Before we came into office, I saw a city government and a council that was really unfocused and struggling in many ways to address the challenges that were impacting Vancouver. Whether that was housing availability, public safety, or street disorder, encampments on our sidewalks, dangerous fires, and other issues that were happening in the city that people were concerned about. And I don't want to go back to those times. These are not unique problems to Vancouver. Cities across the province are struggling with many of the same issues. But one difference that I see in Vancouver with this council is that we have a council majority that's taking a different approach. And that's an approach that's focused on action, results, and outcomes. And I think that's what this budget is. We've made historic investments in public safety in Vancouver, in police, in our police department and fire department. We've uplifted neighborhoods, including Gastown and Chinatown, with more neighborhoods to come. And we've been taking care of the basics, whether that's picking up the garbage and compost on time, repairing potholes and sidewalks, beautifying our parks and boulevards and street trees, and supporting our small businesses through cutting unnecessary red tape and bureaucracy and giving them the support they need to succeed. I think it's really easy to say, let's just keep increasing property taxes every year beyond the rate of inflation and keep adding hundreds of staff. It's really easy for a councillor sitting here to say that, but it's not the right thing to do. And often the right things to do are the hardest things to do. Some councillors have suggested that we return to that old approach where taxpayers are asked to pay more and more every single year without seeing any meaningful improvement. And I say to that, we need to shift how we deliver services and refocus on the core services of running a city while keeping affordability for Vancouver families top of mind. Vancouver families, Vancouver residents, and Vancouver businesses are who we are here to serve and represent. And that's everyday Vancouverites, many of whom are feeling the pinch of rising costs for everything, from putting a roof over their head, to buying groceries, to going out for dinner if they can afford it, to even going to the movies. We need to respond to that and not add to the burden. And small businesses are also feeling the pressure. They have rising labor costs. They have higher costs for materials, for food, for leases, for interest rates, and the list goes on and on and on. These small businesses are the lifeblood of many of our neighborhoods, but they're struggling, and they deserve a break for 1 year. Not another 2 to 3% increase or 6 to 7. It's been funny. It started out as 6 to 7 property tax increase by the opposition. Now they're down to 2 or 3, or 2 to 3%. I say no more. This budget directs taxpayer dollars to the practical services that people rely on every day, and it gives staff clear direction to spend wisely, avoid unnecessary complexity, and deliver results that are measurable in the lives of residents every day. To build on that progress, we need to make choices that strengthen the core functions of the city. This budget supports that work by protecting essential services like frontline maintenance, emergency response, community facilities, and arts and culture programming, while giving everyday Vancouverites a break. I really believe, and I'm confident, that we can make these changes, we can get our house in order, and we can reduce city spending while protecting those core services that Vancouverites depend on. This direction is long overdue, and I'm proud to be part of a council that wants to deliver it. And that's what this budget is about, and that's why I'm going to be supporting it. This is for everyday Vancouverites who are working hard to survive in our city, and they deserve a break, and we're going to give it to them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much, Mayor. So I am speaking in opposition of this budget today, and I'll offer some remarks as to why. There have been some small amendments, and regardless of that, and some of those tweaks are important to specific businesses who have patios to offer some clarity around fees. But we have to be very clear that tweaks do not fix the foundation of this budget. They don't address the bigger picture of the 47, give or take, $1 million in hidden fees. They don't explain the service impacts. They don't protect the arts or sustainability or frontline workers. So what we did see today wasn't real change. It's just really insulation politically, I'd say. Just enough small fixes to make good headlines while leaving the real problems intact. And Vancouver deserves more than cosmetic adjustments designed to look like progress. Taxpayers still don't have a real clear picture of the service impacts, the fee increases, or the fixed obligations buried within this document or a pending decision around a document in the future year. Passing a budget with this many blind spots without any clarity is flat out irresponsible. And we are not the first local government to suggest or propose in Vancouver a 0% property tax increase, but I can tell you those that have done it in the past are taking it upon themselves to get in touch, to warn that unless our costs have gone down, a 0% property tax rate are significant cuts that last more than a year, more than a term, multiple years into multiple terms to correct. So passing a budget with this many blind spots, as I say, is flat out irresponsible, and taxpayers deserve better than a budget built on what appears to be simply omissions or hidden costs, and quite frankly, wishful thinking. So let's be clear, you don't fix a bad budget by tweaking a few lines around the edges. Transparency requires substance, and we didn't get that today. So if residents are being asked to pay more, and with this budget they deserve to know exactly why. The small amendments won't change the fact that the public still can't see where the increase in millions of fees land, what services are shifting, and how already stretched departments are expected to absorb pressure. Trust isn't built through tweaks, it's built through transparency, and that is what is still missing here. So we need to be clear about what pushing ahead with this budget actually means. When you hide $47 million in and around, those costs don't disappear. They land squarely on the residents, on community organizations, and the services we all rely on. It means arts and culture organizations that are already stretched thin face even more uncertainty. If we found any savings in the operational part of arts and culture, why not allocate that funding, those savings, to the arts grants that have been static for 20 years despite rising costs? We talk about being a creative, vibrant city, but this budget doesn't protect the people and institutions that make it possible. It means our sustainability and climate commitments are now at risk because nothing in this budget clearly defends or secures those priorities. And it means frontline staff from parks to libraries to public safety will be absorbing even more pressure with no transparency about how workloads or expectations are shifting. And it means residents are being asked to pay more without being told why. The kind of budgeting that erodes trust and weakens the relationship between City Hall and the people we serve. So small changes may soften the edges, but they do not fix the core. And at the core of this budget still isn't an honest conversation with the public. So to finish, Council has had a chance to make these improvements today, to adopt amendments that would have brought real transparency, real clarity, and real accountability, amendments that would have confronted the hard choices openly, and instead we got minor fixes around the margins and a refusal to address major gaps that residents have been facing for weeks. So that's what my amendment was about today, laying out the truth, acknowledging the hard choices, and respecting the people who pay the bills. And it's very disappointing it wasn't accepted because Vancouver does deserve a council that levels with people, even when the truth is uncomfortable. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Orr.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to a few comments around the survey and that it was discriminatory. And I just wanted to make it clear and put on the record that I did propose a brand new budget survey and it was voted down. And then there could have been a real opportunity there to do some more outreach around that. And as well, in terms of cost of living, I did propose a tax break for those whose houses are below $3 million, which would have given everyday Vancouverites a break. I think it's important. I think we should have an honest conversation about finding efficiencies, but this just feels like a chainsaw. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dominato.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the proposed budget. I'm going to try not to repeat what others have said. So maybe I'll start with sharing reflections from our own financial staff over the last number of years in terms of financial outlooks that were delivered, particularly if you go back to prior to 2018. City staff financial team was anticipating that the potential for a significant gap between the growth in expenses and the growth in revenues. This was something they wrote, I believe, in the 2016 financial outlook. And then they warned repeatedly, councils prior to 2018, that costs were rising faster than inflation and that corrective measures such as process improvements, information technology transformation, and review of service delivery models were necessary to address higher costs of labor, facilities, and operations. I daylight this again because as there's a debate going on here about this budget and what's taking place, the writing's been on the wall for a number of years that there needed to be a pivot, there needed to be a rebalancing, a reframing. And I think there's some boldness in this in saying that we are going to be fiscal stewards and actually address those gaps that have been identified and named for 10, 15 years while protecting critical essential emergency services, frontline services, recreation services and programs. I was looking at the poster left by the children and the families that came today, and they said it was important to protect libraries. That's what we're doing in this budget. It was already named the protections around arts and culture and other public amenities. But these are difficult decisions, but this is actually leaning into the problem. It's not, as some are suggesting around the table, for cosmetic reasons. It's actually saying there's been a gap for some time and it hasn't been addressed by successive councils. And here we are, and we've been working with staff to pioneer new innovative technologies, new revenue streams, looking at our process improvements. That's the work that's being undertaken, and there are efficiencies being found. And when we talk about making choices, affordability isn't just about property taxes. There's a cumulative impact for families and individuals in this city. It's not just that. There's other costs and cost pressures that families are facing, and it impacts our families, our seniors, our individuals with disabilities. And so I think we need to try to get away from this notion that this budget isn't about people. It is actually about people. It's about stability for the future, for our future residents. And again, this members of this council rejected an opportunity to bring in $20 to $30 million annually in the future that would have been non-tax revenue. That was just like weeks ago that was voted down. And so I think this is actually a responsible budget. I think it's pragmatic. I think it sets the course for some stability in the future. And I think that it's been very clear from the outset that it is going to deliver, it's going to reduce the pressure, financial pressure and burden on residents of Vancouver, but it's also going to continue to deliver services. And I think we need to remember that increasing taxes doesn't necessarily mean better service. So when people have talked about that somehow like the 0% is you're going to reduce services. That's not the case. And what we are doing and our staff are doing is working very carefully to look at how we deliver quality services, but looking at that service delivery model and doing it differently. And I think that's responsible leadership.
Thank you very much. Clerk, do I have to see the chair? All right. I'm going to cede the chair to, can I get my timer restarted? Okay. So when we talk about affordability, I think about the families who are doing everything they can to make life work in the city. Now, I know a lot of you know that I grew up in a home where every single dollar mattered, and I know firsthand how much pressure people are feeling today. That's why this budget holds the line at 0. 0 means 0, and this council is committed to doing our part to keep life manageable for residents and businesses. It's important to recognize how we got here. When we first came to office, we inherited a mess. The city was facing sharply rising crime rates and an infrastructure deficit valued at $500 million. Previous administrations had raided the city's reserve funds in order to bankroll pet projects, while quality of life in Vancouver continued to decline. Fast forward to today, and Vancouver is showing real momentum. Our streets are cleaner and safer. Our city is operating more efficiently, and the challenges that have impacted the city for decades are finally being properly addressed. Now, we've been able to make this progress because we've made responsible budget decisions over the course of the term. We've fully funded police and fire for the first time in decades, and our city now has the lowest violent crime rate in 23 years. We're fixing our city's infrastructure deficit. We're already doing the things differently, and we're seeing the benefits play out in real time. Now, these outcomes do matter. They help families and businesses feel secure and support the sense of optimism that we're working on building and rebuilding. With this budget, we take the next step forward. The 0 means 0 budget protects and strengthens the things people rely on every single day. They want garbage picked up, roads and sidewalks fixed up, parks be maintained, and community centers to be well-resourced. It's about focusing on the things that Vancouverites expect of their local government. And as a council, our responsibility is to make thoughtful, disciplined decisions today so that future generations inherit a city that is affordable and well-managed. We need to build a city that we can make the most of good economic conditions and weather the storm during the bad times. This budget delivers just that. It focuses on frontline services, strengthens our fiscal foundation, and gives our team members the clarity they need to run an efficient and responsive government. And most importantly, it provides relief to the hundreds of thousands of Vancouverites who have been impacted by the ongoing affordability crisis. Opposition councillors voted for a 6 to 7% property tax increase. I just can't agree with that. You know, there's been a lot said about how this only benefits certain groups and renters don't benefit. My family grew up as renters. We got bounced from place to place to place because we couldn't make rent. So let me tell you, this is what it looks like. You cannot avoid the realities of costs. When you increase property taxes by 6 to 7%, renters pay for it. They pay for it through increased costs of rent, or homes that are rented but are not maintained properly, or you lose rental housing stock. In every situation, renters suffer, especially if you promote a 6 to 7% property tax increase. People pay for it, and in this case, it will be the renters over the long term. Some members of this chamber have voted against investments into policing. Once again, I cannot agree with that. I think we have to be very clear. You either stand for public safety or you don't. Don't talk around it. We're making a stand. Some members of this chamber want to take us backwards to a failed approach of the last administration. I can't agree with that either. But here's what I can agree with. A city that's safe, affordable, and vibrant. A city that's run efficiently and effectively. And a city that delivers high-quality frontline services while respecting taxpayer dollars. And that's why I'm proud to support a 0% property tax increase. And I'm very proud to be voting in favor of this budget. And I do want to thank our team, everyone that worked incredibly hard on this to get us to this point. So thank you very much. I'll take back the chair. Okay, so seeing no one else in the queue, I'm now going to call a vote. If everyone can go to the voting panel, please.
With the clerks, that it is the amended version of this. Because there was a number of amendments. It does include those. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and the budget, the budget passes with Councillors Bly, Fry, Orr, and Maloney in opposition. Okay. So that completes all reports related to the 2026 capital and operating budget. So the next item on the document, by the way, thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate all the hard work and everything you do for the city. Okay, notice of council member motions. Are there any notice of council member motions for upcoming standing committee meetings? A reminder to please state the title of the motion and the date of the standing committee meeting on which you intend to move the motion, and be sure to send the title and date of the standing committee meeting via email to the city clerk. Okay. Councillor Klassen.
Thank you, Mayor. Notice of motion, urgent actions from the Vancouver Business Growth Task Force, and that will be for the December 10th, 2025 Standing Committee. And this is co-submitted by myself, Councillor Klassen, and Councillor Zhou. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Yeah, thanks. This is a notice of motion for December 10th Standing Committee meeting entitled Cementing the City of Vancouver's Support for Pride Weekend, submitted by myself.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Yeah, 3 notices on motion for December 10th Standing Committee. Number 1 is breaking up with the equitable access for real-time council agenda and speaker updates. Number 2 is affirming Vancouver's commitment as a sanctuary city. And number 3 is don't let Chinatown's postal service be stamped out.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maloney.
For the December 10, 2025 Standing Committee meeting, improve public safety for everyone in Vancouver through safer intersections.
Thank you very much. Councillor Orr.
Thanks. For the Standing Committee, December 10th, assessing motor vehicle speeding risk at Vancouver's most dangerous intersections. And as well as the same meeting, December 10th, supporting a fare-free transit route pilot in Vancouver.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any other items before we go to new business? Going on. Okay, new business. We have one item of new business in the agenda, and that's requests for leaves of absence. This motion has been circulated to council at the beginning of the meeting and is available on the screen. Would someone like to move a motion? Actually, before we move the motion, why don't you take a second to review it just to make sure it captures everything? So would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Klassen. Council, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Just bear with me for 1 sec here, please. Okay, sorry, clerk, do you have to see the chair on new business as well? Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Dominato, can I please see the chair? Right. I do have one item in new business, and it's a request for a leave of absence for personal reasons on December the 12th at 1 p.m. Onwards, and I will send that to the clerks. What's the best email to send it to? Sometime, whenever I send it to that window. Okay. sorry. Okay. Did you get it?
Do we have the motion now okay, so now a way. So all in favor? Show of hands. Okay, that passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I'll take back the chair. Councillor Bly?
Thanks very much. I have a new business item,
Okay.
and it is that Councillor Maloney be named in place of Councillor Bly as acting mayor on December 7th to the 11th and 27th to the 31st.
Do we have a seconder? Great. Councillor Meisner. Council, is there any discussion? All in those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Great, that carries. Thank you. Councillor Dominato.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. A couple of items of new business. First item being a leave of absence for personal business December 10th, 5 p.m. onwards. And the second item is a retroactive leave of absence for civic business November 13th, 2025, 9:30 a.m. onwards. And that's to be amended in the minutes tomorrow. But
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Great. Councillor Joe, thank you. Council, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Great, motion carries. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I also sent in an item of new business. It's a change to the business license hearing panels. And I think the clerks have that already. It's simply that Councillor Claassen is replacing me at a December 17th date, and I am taking one for him in June.
Great. And do you have a second? Great, Councillor Joe, thank you. Council, any discussion? Great. We'll put it to a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Great, that carries. Council, last chance. Any other items of new business before we move on? Okay, inquiries and other matters. Council, are there any inquiries or other matters? I don't see anyone in the queue, so last chance before we move on. Great, may we have a motion to adjourn? Great, Councillor Claassen, seconded by Councillor Meisner. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Pardon? Yes, and 2:40 for in camera.